when NBA superstar Stephen Curry found himself at the McDonald's counter without his wallet. A humble, elderly homeless man graciously offered to cover the cost of his meal with the last of his money. Little did the generous stranger know, he was aiding not just any patron, but one of the greatest basketball players and a down-to-earth celebrity. This gesture would not go unnoticed, especially on this sweltering afternoon in downtown Oakland. Stephen, driving his white Tesla Model X and accompanied by his wife Aisha and their eldest daughter Riley Elizabeth, was navigating the busy streets on a Saturday afternoon. They were headed to the local community sports center in Oakland, where the Warriors were hosting casual games for fans and family. The family chatted casually, with Stephen checking in with Riley through the rearview mirror about her excitement for the day's events. "Yes, Daddy. Will I get to play too?" Riley's enthusiastic response came as Stephen laughed and explained the nature of the day, more about enjoyment and connection than competition. Aisha chimed in, adding that it was a great opportunity for families to relax and bond. As they discussed plans, Riley expressed her hunger and suggested they grab a bite before the game. Spotting a McDonald's, Stephen veered into the drive-thru, only to be stalled by a slow-moving line. While waiting, their conversation turned to family matters and upcoming plans, providing a pleasant backdrop to the unexpected delay. However, a moment of need captured their attention. A dignified, elderly homeless man was moving between cars, seeking help. Riley, observant and concerned, suggested they do something. Unfortunately, both Aisha and Stephen found themselves without small change, and Stephen had only a limited amount of cash on hand, reserved for their meal. Faced with a decision, and after hearing Riley's willing sacrifice to skip eating before the game, Stephen chose compassion. He handed half of his cash to the man, who was taken aback by the kindness but unaware of the celebrity in his midst. The man thanked them profoundly before disappearing from sight. The encounter left a deep impression on the family, particularly Riley, who praised her father's kindness. Stephen used the moment to teach a valuable lesson about the importance of giving when fortunate enough to do so. Aisha and Stephen reassured Riley about the man's well-being, emphasizing that they had done what they could. As they continued to wait, the delay in the drive-thru line grew frustrating, especially with the game approaching. Finally deciding to investigate the hold-up, Stephen stepped out of the car, only to learn from a flustered employee that a vehicle had broken down at the front of the line, completely halting the drive-thru service. This unexpected twist added to the day's adventures, reminding the Kais that sometimes, despite the best-laid plans, life could take unexpected turns. "But we need to clear everyone out by reversing their vehicles," he explained, his tone apologetic. "We're really sorry for this inconvenience. If you'd like, you can park and order inside." Steph nodded, understanding the situation yet feeling frustrated by the delay. As he climbed back into the Tesla, Aisha and Riley looked to him expectantly for an update. "There's a broken-down car blocking the drive-thru," he explained as he glanced at the clock. "They're asking us to back out and either leave or park and go inside." Riley, displaying wisdom beyond her years, suggested, "Maybe we should just skip the food so we're not late for the game." But Steph, considering the time already spent waiting, decided otherwise. "Let's park and order inside. It should be faster this way." With that, Steph expertly reversed the Tesla, making room for others to do the same, and then found a parking spot. As they prepared to head inside, Riley expressed a desire to join Steph, while Aisha, catching up with Zora via video call, chose to stay in the car. "I'll be quick," Steph assured, as he and Riley walked toward the restaurant. Inside, the sharp contrast of the McDonald's fluorescent lighting against the natural afternoon light was stark. They walked in to find an employee confronting several homeless individuals with undue harshness, causing a stir among the patrons and unsettling the atmosphere. Riley, tugging at her father's sleeve, asked with concern, "Dad, why is he being so mean?" Kneeling to her level, Steph saw this as a moment to impart a valuable lesson. Businesses have rules about who can be inside, sweetheart, but the way it's being handled is indeed harsh. Riley, puzzled, replied, "Couldn't they be nicer about it?" Steph nodded, explaining the complexity of the situation, but emphasizing the importance of kindness and respect in all interactions. As they approached the counter, Riley suddenly recognized the homeless man they had helped earlier, now ordering his meal. Steph felt a quiet satisfaction seeing him use the money for a good cause. "This is why we help when we can," he told Riley. "We don't know their full stories, but a little kindness can make a big difference." As they prepared to order, Steph discussed the importance of helping wisely, but without harsh judgment, a lesson Riley took to heart. After placing their order, a simple meal of chicken nuggets for Riley and a cheeseburger for Steph, they noticed the man again. Riley suggested saying hello, and Steph agreed, planning to approach him after getting their food. However, when Steph reached for his wallet to pay, he realized it was missing. His discomfort grew as patrons recognized him, and the whispers started. Just then, the same homeless man stepped forward, offering to pay for their meal with more money than Steph had initially given him. "Let me help you this time," he said, his voice rough but kind. Touched by the gesture, Steph was reminded of the cycle of kindness and the unexpected connections that can arise from genuine acts of generosity. As he confronted the manager's blatant disrespect, "This man has just shown more generosity than many with far more means. He belongs here as much as anyone else," Steph asserted, his voice firm yet controlled. The tension in the restaurant escalated, but Steph's stature and demeanor commanded attention. The old man stood quietly beside him, the dignity of his gesture overshadowed by the manager's harsh treatment. "Look, he paid for his meal, and he was sitting peacefully. There's no reason for this kind of behavior," Steph continued, addressing the manager but loud enough for other patrons to hear, reinforcing the lesson of respect and equality he hoped to impart to Riley. The manager, realizing the growing audience and recognizing Steph's celebrity status, finally backed down. His voice softened, albeit reluctantly. "All right, he can stay. But keep it civil," he muttered before turning away, leaving a sour atmosphere behind him. Steph turned to the old man, offering a supportive hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. Thank you for standing up for what's right," he said, directing his words to both Riley and the old man, reinforcing the value of standing firm in the face of injustice. Riley, still shaken but relieved, hugged her father. "I'm glad you were here, Dad," she said, looking up at him with a mix of admiration and relief. Steph hugged her back, his heart heavy but proud of her courage. They returned to the table, where the old man resumed his meal, his hands trembling slightly but his face showing a quiet resolve. Steph sat with him, ensuring he felt safe and respected, while Riley fetched their order from the counter. As they ate, Steph discussed with Riley the importance of empathy and standing up for others, no matter their circumstances. "Sometimes, Riley, doing the right thing means standing up against those who misuse their power," he explained. This meal, though simple, had turned into an unexpected lesson on dignity, kindness, and justice. After finishing their food, Steph walked the old man out, assuring him that he was always welcome to join them at a game. He handed him his card, encouraging him to reach out if he ever needed anything. With a final wave goodbye, Steph and Riley returned to their Tesla, the day's events leaving a lasting imprint on their minds. They drove off to the community game, a little late but enriched by a profound experience that transcended the ordinary day they had planned. But it quickly hardened back into defiance. "This is my restaurant, and I decide the policy here," he stated firmly, unwilling to back down despite the mounting pressure. Steph, remaining composed yet firm, responded, "And as a customer, I'm telling you that your policy is wrong. This man is a guest in your establishment just like anyone else. He deserves the same respect. The situation was clearly affecting the other customers, some of whom began murmuring among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with the manager's harsh stance. Seeing the growing support for Steph and the old man, one of the other employees stepped forward, her expression one of concern. "Sir, maybe we can handle this a bit differently," she suggested to the manager, trying to offer a peaceful resolution. Her intervention seemed to give the manager pause, allowing him to reconsider without losing face. Finally, with a begrudging sigh, the manager relented. "Fine, he can stay," he muttered, "but no more disturbances." Steph thanked the employee for her mediation and reassured the old man, who had remained silent but visibly shaken throughout the confrontation. "Let's go back to our table," Steph suggested, guiding him and Riley away from the tense area. As they settled down, Steph used the moment to teach Riley an important lesson about advocacy and respect. "Riley, sometimes standing up for what's right isn't easy, but it's necessary. We all deserve respect, no matter our situation or how we look." Riley nodded, understanding the weight of her father's words. "I'm proud of you for speaking up," Steph added, smiling at his daughter, who had shown maturity beyond her years. They finished their meal in a quieter part of the restaurant, discussing lighter topics to ease the earlier tension. Steph made it a point to chat with the old man, learning a bit about his life and sharing a few laughs, showing Riley the importance of treating everyone with kindness and dignity. As they left the restaurant, Steph made sure to thank the employee who had intervened. "Your empathy made a difference today," he told her. "Thank you for stepping in." With a final wave to the old man, promising to keep in touch, Steph and Riley headed back to their car, reflecting on the day's events, a simple meal that had turned into an invaluable lesson on compassion and standing up for others. But what you're doing is not about policy, it's about fairness and dignity. You're on camera, and people are watching how you treat others. Do you really want them to see you act like this? The manager, now visibly flustered by the attention and Riley's pointed words, hesitated. The live audience's reaction was immediate, with comments pouring in, supporting Riley's stand and criticizing the manager's behavior. Steph, keeping the camera steady, added, "This isn't just about us getting our food. It's about showing that everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their situation. Frank is our guest, and he will be treated as such." With the pressure mounting and the digital audience growing, the manager reluctantly backed down, muttering under his breath as he handed over the food. "Just take it and go," he said, keen to end the confrontation. Steph thanked the viewers for their support and turned off the live stream. He then turned to Frank, ensuring he had everything he needed and was feeling all right after the ordeal. Frank, though shaken, expressed his gratitude for the support and the platform to share his story. As they left the restaurant, Steph made a promise to Frank and to Riley that they would follow up on this issue, not just to ensure it didn't happen again at this restaurant, but as part of a broader effort to address how the homeless are treated in their community. Riley, inspired by the day's events and the support from the live stream viewers, suggested they start a fund or a campaign to help people like Frank. Steph agreed, seeing an opportunity to turn the day's negative experiences into a positive movement. On the drive home, they discussed plans to set up a charity initiative that would not only support the homeless, but also educate businesses and the public on compassion and respect. Steph knew that with his platform, he could make a significant impact. The day ended not just with a lesson learned, but with a new mission forged, driven by the unexpected events and the courage shown by all, especially Riley, who had stood up boldly for what was right. "But we need to make sure Frank gets the care he needs right now. Thank you for understanding." The fans, recognizing the urgency in Steph's voice and the gravity of the situation, nodded and stepped back, allowing them to pass. Steph, Riley, and Frank made their way to the Tesla. As they drove off, Steph dialed a local medical center to ensure that Frank would receive immediate attention upon their arrival. During the drive, Steph and Riley continued to engage with Frank, making him feel included and cared for. Frank shared more about his life, expressing gratitude for the unexpected kindness he had experienced that day, contrasting sharply with the harsh treatment he'd received earlier. Upon reaching the community sports center, medical staff were ready and waiting, having been alerted by Steph's call. They quickly attended to Frank, treating his injuries with the professionalism and compassion he deserved. While Frank was being cared for, Steph took a moment to address the crowd that had gathered at the sports center, many of whom had heard about the incident through the live stream. He spoke about the importance of community support and treating all individuals with respect and dignity, regardless of their circumstances. The event not only turned into a spontaneous community gathering, but also a learning moment for everyone present. Steph emphasized the power of standing together against injustice and the impact of spreading awareness through platforms like live streaming. After the game, which was filled with friendly competition and community bonding, Steph and Riley invited Frank to join them for dinner. They continued their conversation, discussing ways to assist others who were struggling and planning future initiatives to support the homeless in their community. As the day ended, Steph felt a renewed sense of purpose. The incident had sparked a wider conversation about societal responsibilities towards vulnerable populations. He planned to use his platform to advocate for change, ensuring that what happened to Frank served as a catalyst for positive action in the community. Frank, feeling overwhelmed by the day's events, expressed his heartfelt thanks to Steph and Riley for their support. "You've turned what was one of my worst days into one of my best," he said, his voice emotional. "Thank you for not just seeing me, but for helping others see me too." Steph and Riley, moved by Frank's words, assured him that this was just the beginning of their efforts to make a difference. They dropped Frank off at a local shelter where they had arranged for his continued care and promised to stay in touch, committed to being part of his journey toward stability. As they drove home, Steph reflected on the day's events, thankful for the unexpected opportunity to make a real difference and inspired by his daughter's compassion and resolve. This experience reaffirmed their commitment to using their visibility to shine a light on issues often overlooked and to foster a community that uplifts everyone, no matter their situation. Reflecting on the impactful encounters and the conversations that had unfolded. As he prepared for the game, the sense of purpose he felt was invigorating, driving him to not only perform on the court but to continue advocating for those who faced struggles like Frank. Returning to the court, Steph found Frank comfortably settled, surrounded by new acquaintances who were drawn to his story and inspired by the kindness shown to him. The community's response was a testament to the compassion that Steph aimed to foster through his actions. The game commenced with the usual energy and excitement of community sports, but with an added layer of significance for Steph. Each pass and shot carried a deeper meaning, a reminder of his commitment to using his platform for good. The crowd cheered, more engaged than usual, many of whom were aware of the day's earlier events and supportive of the cause being highlighted. During halftime, Steph took a moment to speak to the audience, not just about the game, but about the importance of community support and standing together to help those in need. He shared a brief overview of Frank's situation without divulging too much, respecting his privacy, and underscored the need for a compassionate approach to those who are less fortunate. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with attendees expressing their support, and some even offering to help in whatever way they could. The sports center buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose, and discussions about community initiatives and support networks began to take shape among the spectators. After the game, Steph, Riley, and Aisha spent some more time with Frank, discussing potential steps they could take to assist him further. They talked about connecting him with local resources, job opportunities, and possibly a crowdfunding campaign to help with his immediate needs and to get him back on his feet. As the evening drew to a close, the Curry family drove Frank back to the shelter where he had been staying. They promised to return the next day with more concrete plans and assistance. Frank, deeply moved by the generosity and warmth he had received, expressed his gratitude, his hope visibly restored by the kindness shown to him. Steph reflected on the drive home, the skyline now darkening as night settled over Oakland. The day had started as a simple outing, but had transformed into a powerful reminder of his ability to effect change. He felt a deep satisfaction knowing that through a series of unexpected events, they had sparked a conversation about dignity and compassion that would hopefully continue to grow and resonate within the community. Riley, energized by the day's events, talked animatedly about planning a visit to the shelter to meet other residents and learn more about how they could help. Aisha, proud of her family's efforts, discussed ideas for using their platform to advocate for systemic changes that could provide more support for people like Frank. The car ride home was filled with plans and promises, a family united in their commitment to make a difference, their hearts full of hope and determination to continue pushing for positive change in their community and beyond. As they drove home, the quiet of the night enveloped the car, but inside, the atmosphere was charged with the promise of new beginnings. Riley, usually so full of questions and stories, sat silently, her thoughts on the day's events and the impact they had had not just on Frank, but on her own understanding of kindness and community. Aisha, always the planner, was already discussing next steps. "We'll need to make sure Frank has everything he needs to feel at home," she said, pulling out her phone to jot down a list of essentials they would need to gather for the apartment. Steph nodded, his mind on the broader implications of what had started as a simple act of kindness. "We should also think about how we can use this experience to encourage others to act," he suggested. "Maybe we can set up a fund or a foundation to support others who are struggling like Frank." The idea resonated with Aisha and Riley, both of whom were eager to extend the circle of compassion even wider. The discussion turned to potential partners for the initiative, local charities that could help vet and support beneficiaries, and ways to engage the community to contribute, not just financially but as volunteers and advocates. Frank, for his part, was overwhelmed by the whirlwind of generosity and the sudden shift in his fortunes. He listened quietly, occasionally interjecting with a humble suggestion or a quiet thank you. His life had changed in the span of a day, all because of a chance encounter that had led to an outpouring of support. He felt a deep gratitude but also a sense of responsibility to make the most of this opportunity. As they approached the apartment that would become Frank's temporary home, the lights of the city sparkled below, mirroring the stars above. It was a clear, beautiful night, and as Steph helped Frank out of the car, he felt the weight of the moment. "This is more than just a place to stay," Steph told Frank as they ascended the steps to the apartment. "It's a fresh start. Take it as a sign that things are turning around." Frank nodded, his emotions raw as he took in the modest but comfortable apartment. "I can't believe this," he murmured, taking a tentative look around. "A few hours ago, I didn't know where my next meal was coming from, and now, look at this." Riley, who had been quietly observing, came forward to give Frank a small, reassuring hug. "You're safe now, Mr. Frank," she said. "You're with friends." The night ended with promises to meet again soon, to finalize the details of Frank's new life, and to discuss the foundation they hoped to establish. As the Curry family drove away, leaving Frank to settle in for the night, they did so with a sense of accomplishment and a renewed commitment to making a difference. Back at home, as Steph tucked Riley into bed, she looked up at him with a serious expression. "Dad, do you think there are more people like Mr. Frank out there?" Steph sat beside her, considering her question. "I'm sure there are, Riley," he replied. "And that's why we have to keep helping, just like we did today." Riley nodded, her young mind already turning over the possibilities of their new project. "Then let's make sure we really help them, like we did Mr. Frank." Steph kissed her forehead, proud of her compassion and determination. "We will, Riley. We'll do it together." Outside, the night was silent, but for the Curry family, it was alive with plans and dreams for the future, a future where they extended a hand to those in need, one act of kindness at a time.